Yes, I will shortly present my guests here, and then we will dive right into it. So this to my left is Olivia Popp. She is a curator and programmer and future screenwriter. Yeah, this is Freya Herrmann. She's a costume designer and a screenwriter as well, and a podcaster. And this is Elena Meilicke. She is a postdoc at UDK, Universität der Künste, and she's also a film critic. So we have a fancy crowd here who are not connected to the films, which I really appreciate, because the topic of this debate is Rudelkritik. Yeah, when they asked me to do this, and they gave me this word, and they gave me the names of the people I would be talking to, I was thinking, hell yeah, what what is this? And I started thinking about the word Rudel, which is translated to pack, and this is not a word that you would usually use for formation of humans, but for animals. So which I really liked when I thought about it, because I then thought there's I always make theories about everything, and I think this is a theory about film critique. So when we think about film critique in a classic way, then a critique is sitting there watching a film and then embedding the film into his or her knowledge, and then trying to define what's going on and trying to get it all out, or the things that he or she saw. It's elite, it's classy, it's nice to read, and I like it. But there's a second form of critique that exists, and this is the Rudel one, the pack one, when it becomes sensitive, and when we have a shared experience. And actually, in my opinion, this form of talking about film might only be working when we watch films together. When I thought more about it, I thought maybe this is why we have cinemas, but we don't use them that way. So I would like to invite, first of all, like the three of you to dive in with me on that kind of talking about film, which is really sharing what you felt when you watched the film, and really like reveal the feelings. And we have the filmmakers here. They're not on stage. So please, filmmakers, this is a very judgy approach. And it doesn't need to be objective. It needs to be the other way around. It needs to be very subjective. So take whatever you need, and the rest you just fuck it, you know, you just leave it out. But maybe it's all good. Who knows? We'll see. Yeah, I've been talking too long now. Olivia, what did you feel?
What a loaded question. Should I say as a whole or with individual films?
You choose. Just take one thing, take the whole, take your feeling now, which is also important.
Sure. I think when I was, I mean, as you said, my critic brain goes to certain buzzwords and certain keywords. But if we're trying to dial back into the emotional aspect, I think there was an unexpected element of anticipation with the first film, because of the very long shots, and then kind of juxtaposing it with the second film, which has much more shorter shots. It was kind of, I felt that I began to anticipate what was going to appear next, but differently for each film. And so this wasn't something, it wasn't anticipation of something in particular, but I was kind of, thinking about where the next cut would be. And that's where this aspect of anticipation, not necessarily expectation, I don't know if this is, making any sense here, but that was the sort of predominant emotion that started to come to the fore, which I hadn't thought about ever happening here.
Was it a good feeling or a bad feeling?
I honestly wouldn't try to put a normative, context on it.
Please give me.
But I don't know if I can in this moment, honestly. I can't say it's neutral, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was.
It's an observation first. Okay.
Yeah, first and foremost, but
yeah,
I think maybe as we go on, I can figure that out.
Yeah, can you relate to that?
Yeah, hi everyone, first of all. I really like your question about like, what did you feel or what did you actually experience? And I had an interesting experience because I watched both films. This was the second time that I've seen them, and the first time I actually watched them at home on my laptop in my bed, and I had a very different reaction to the films this time in the theater. And with the second film, it's almost hard to talk about it because it really affected me much more than the first time I saw it. And it was, if I should describe that, the reaction I had, I almost felt kind of like assaulted in a way. And maybe it had to do with the sound. I thought the sound was really loud. I don't know how you perceive this, but to me, and the sound was very rough, I noticed this time around. And the montage was kind of relentless. You mentioned those very short images, and it kept like going. So it was a kind of a difficult experience to watch it, which doesn't mean that that's not like a judgment against the film. Maybe that's actually something very powerful to do, but I had a strong sense of unease and like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be that close in that house and to that protagonist in a way. Yeah.
Hi, I feel like I've seen too many penises today. That's what I felt. And then a certain sense of restlessness, I would say, in totally different forms. And for me, it felt also really creeping up on me and very intense. And yeah, I'm interested in diving in further.
Yeah. I mean, the penis thing I can totally relate to. And I also had the feeling, even when I watched it for the first time, to take round 4, just to, when I watched it the first time, to be honest, I paused. I have this space thing, and then I went out of the room and I smoked a cigarette, and then I went back, and you cannot do that in the cinema, so I went out and I came in. And I needed it, and I asked myself why I needed it, and I think it was this feeling of relentlessness that was coming up. But when watching the second film, I felt, oh my God, the first one is getting a different feeling now. Can you relate to that? How did that happen? Did it happen to you? I don't want to talk.
Yeah, I mean, the first film seemed so much more whimsical to me. After the second, it had such a different vibe. And I mean, I think it's interesting because both films are so much about intimacy and closeness. But the first film was so interesting in that it showed intimacy between people, or like relationships that seemed to be very close. And the second film was I think what was so hard was this loneliness or solipsistic situation. And there seemed to be an audience addressed, but I was never sure who is that audience. Is this me, or is this some social media audience? There was so much, such a greater sense of isolation and loneliness in my perspective.
Yeah, I really liked how both films were films about people watching TV crime shows and judging them. So I think if you see 2 films in a row like this, you try to find connections. Your mind can't do otherwise, and they were pretty clear. But emotionally, for me, it was really 2 different things, although it's easy to understand why they were shown together tonight.
Honestly, I didn't necessarily have that experience of the first film being recontextualized by the second, but I think I made these connections instinctively for instance, the idea of I had the same question running through my mind, which was, who is the audience, or perhaps maybe that's not the right question, but this idea of dialogue or being in dialogue with oneself. And then thinking about the first film, in which dialogue is mediated through many, many different layers of first the physical, phone itself, but then also mediated as through the crime shows. And so utilizing not only the phone, but an actual piece of media to inform the conversation versus the sort of mirror shot in the second film, to me spoke to this idea of like mediation and layers of who am I speaking to, but maybe that question doesn't actually matter. It's just this idea of speaking back to oneself or whatever interpretation one might have with it.
Yeah. That's I want to be deconstructive right now, okay, within this debate. I love this thought that you just mentioned, but I feel like we are drifting towards the first interpretation of film critique, and I want to draw us back and like probably try to find a more precise question to the first one that I posed that brought up all these great thoughts that you just mentioned. Because for me, when I watched the second film, I felt like I was in the cell of the first film in a way. I had the outside first, and then I had the inside at the second time. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And I kind of somewhere located myself in there. And that made me feel uneasy. Can you relate to the feeling of finding yourself in the films in terms of emotions? And if you had to pick one, can you point it out?
Pick what? Like
an emotion, like one thing that you that was triggered by the film, and then you felt like that's exactly, yeah, I know what they mean.
Yeah, I guess I'm still thinking about your take on the second film being in like the prison that the first film is only outside of. I think that's totally interesting. That really makes sense, and that would speak to like a genius way of programming these films together. I hadn't seen that. It's really nice to have you say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If I can interject, honestly, the joy of seeing the animals, like the chicken jumping up the step, that was such, and then this kind of raucous laughter, I think is just like to find these aspects of joy in two films that are like grappling with very difficult topics. I think, honestly, yeah, that's what really lingered with me, or one aspect of the films. And then for the first, I think this moment of the cyclist looking for a connection, to me, that was a moment also of joy, because there was, even though they couldn't see each other, there was a moment between them that seemed to have, if I'm, imposing what I read from the scene, but this moment of joy of, oh, you came to see me, even though you can't physically see me. So that was that moment of joy, I think, from the first film. And those are the two. I think if I add another emotion onto anticipation, it would be joy from the two films.
I think I was like talking about emotions. I mean, the second film is very much a film about emotions and like emotional bookkeeping. Kind of, I like these journal entries and these diaries and like trying to put a name and a face to daily emotions. But I was also very much uncertain about how to read these emotions. Are they like real or acted or performed? It was really hard for me to read the protagonist somehow, and like I was very, very much in a constant state of questioning, like, what is this? What are these emotions? And the first time I watched it, I saw a lot more like the joy and the pleasure that he seems to take in performing, and so I got a very different vibe. This time it was more about, like, I don't know, the desperation or loneliness, despair, anxiety, all these like negative effects were a lot stronger the second time around to me.
Yeah, for me it was exactly the same thing, and those aspects of self-movification and like self-mise en scène were quite. I had a lot of compassion for him at times, but at other times I found it really difficult to watch because it was so pretentious, and also I found it at times very calculated in like citing Deleuze or all these other guys and then peeing all the time and like seeing that as art, obviously. And I found that really annoying, I have to say. But at the same time, I was also wondering if that is really a desperate person trying to connect with whoever is on the end of that camera. And this is now sadly me who is annoyed by it. So I really struggled with that, and also with the notion of being being obviously in Germany and watching this from a really nice cinema, and having that layer also on top of it, and there being real life hardcore problems that the protagonist faces.
I love where this is going. So basically for me, as a difference, for the second time watching it, seeing these penises piss was a relief in a way, because it really solved the question for me if he was okay in a way. When he was doing that, he was just there. It was no performance. But for the first, yeah, that's crazy. I know.
A man and his penis not being a performance, first time ever.
Totally. Well, totally. I totally agree. I had the first time watching it, I had the same feeling. But right now, in this room with the people, I had this intimacy brought me peace.
One way to look at it.
I don't know why. I'm just sharing.
I mean, obviously there was this recurring theme of peeing pictures, which was interesting. But to me, it seemed like almost his cock was like the second protagonist or somebody like in this film, which didn't have more protagonists than him. So that seemed to be one function. And then the other, I mean, at one point he talked about this childhood experience. So I don't know, that offer like an explanation for this obsession maybe. But again, I was not quite sure how to take this, what the movie offers me. How serious it is to take.
Yeah. On the movie space, of course, it's just for me. It was like that. Yeah.
But can I say something? Because I think this story about the childhood experience with I don't actually know the word, but the non-erect penis, I found that somehow touching, but it is really hardcore contrasted for me with the end, penis who comes. That I really don't get. Do you maybe have takes on that?
On the juxtaposition of the two, or the
how you've seen it? What?
No, I think you're right. That it would be interesting or like kind of revolutionary to have this recurring theme of like a flaccid penis, and then the end kind of destroys that.
The end made very, very clear what there was to be seen.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything.
No, I'm thinking about the counterpoint to this, in which the penis does end flaccid, right? After, if we're talking about this. But yeah, I mean, thinking about the two, frankly, I didn't think about that immediately. Obviously, with the first story, this story of, this idea of this soothing image in the head, in the mind. But then there was also the comment, if I'm not mistaken, about not wanting, or Wesley not wanting to film himself peeing, but then the repeated images, that was where the sort of a disconnect for me happened. Frankly, I didn't necessarily see the images particularly as intrusive. Like which was surprising to me actually. After the first one, I was like, oh, this is going to be I was expecting it to feel more intrusive throughout the story, but I didn't see it as a comforting image, but I also just felt like it was, especially when we also see him in the shower, it seemed like a larger part of the story when I was watching it. But actually, I'm wondering now on a second viewing, with this conversation in mind, if that would change. Let's leave it at that for now. I'm trying to think about specifically these last images.
Yeah. I mean, the second film was about seeing too much, and the first film was about, like, while I was watching it, seeing too little. It was about the distance, and this distance. When I watched it the first time, I loved it, that it was a cinematic experience where I couldn't see. And for the second time, I hoped so much to see faces. And then I remembered that I had it for the first time as well. And I don't know where that feeling comes from, that I want to see something when I see, like, perfectly that someone decided not to show me. And that made something with me. Could we talk about, like, what this is doing to us?
Yeah, I had a very similar experience to you, that I very much felt like so frustrated of not getting to see more, and not getting to see a whole face, and not getting to see a body, and not getting to see where things take place. And I mean, both films just throw you in and, like, don't tell you anything about the context, and I had so many questions in both films, and the first one in particular, of course, like, who are these people? Why are they in prison? What's and so I thought that was very obviously very much the strategy of the film to not answer these questions, and to see what happens and what you see when you don't answer these basic questions. So and I thought that was interesting, because suddenly das Rauschen, or like how do you say it in English? Noise, the noise, yes, noise on the level of sound, but also on the level of image, took to the forefront, and developed these aesthetic qualities of abstraction, and at the same time, I still very much had the feeling of listening in on real conversations, and, like, real intimacy, and, like, real. That was really, I found that touching, like, watching Tatort together, and thinking, like, solving who the killer is. It was like these very banal and everyday interactions of that seemed very, very easy and private, and but hard to narrate in a way. So I thought that was really, really nice how the film did that.
Can you? I understood the context of the question, but could you specify more closely? I know I mean, I would just echo the frustration that I had in not seeing the full faces in the first film, but I'm curious if you could return to the question, actually.
So this I mean, you said that perfectly. It was the aim of the film to be like that, to not show, but give us a feeling about. When I just rephrase this very in a banal way, my question was what it did to us while watching it, because it did something to me. I just remarked it, and I was trying in preparation for this to really relent on that, to always go back to that moment where it starts, where I understand that the film does something, and I was trying to suppress the feelings that came up. And so in that case, I even wrote it down here in the darkness. It was like this feeling of, in a way, anger. Like I wanted to see, just to clarify And then I ask myself, why do I want to see something that I'm not supposed to see in a very serious way? And I know why, you know. And then I felt, is this film playing with me? So this is very slowly the aspects of my thinking going through, and then felt like, no, this is something really good happening here. Something is happening. And then the film does that all the time on different levels, you know? And I'm just trying to figure out at what time my feeling went into a different direction and went with the emotion that I had with the characters towards something else, you know?
I think that's also where now that I'm thinking about it, where the aspect or an aspect of anticipation comes in, because there's an image in my mind of where you see just to the lady's mouth as she watches the television, and in my mind I'm thinking, or I was thinking, like, when am I going to see her eyes? When am I going to see her eyes? Or when am I going to see another part of her, what she's communicating with? Because we see the microphone and we see her hands at many different moments gripping, I believe, different things. And so, yeah, I think that's one aspect of my brain wants to fill in the rest of the image of who this person is, because we don't have many other elements. I would push back in my own way and say, for me, I didn't interpret the film as, or I didn't see the film as necessarily wanting to leave us without the answers, but that's just how I saw the film.
How do you mean that?
I guess if I'm not mistaken, there was a statement that the film wants to leave us without certain, like, wants to strip us of certain answers or certain facts about the characters. And to me, I didn't necessarily see that as stripping away, but perhaps, I don't know, maybe there's not a difference between stripping away or leaving out intentionally, but with the three pairs. But I didn't see that as like a violent act of taking away from what we want. But I don't know if others resonate.
I think
with
it
that.
was violent, and it was good that it was violent, because it was happening to these people that we were like observing, trying to communicate with their family members or friends, and being cut off unintentionally all the time. And so I liked that the film did this to me in a way, because it gave me, I mean, how much knowledge do you have about calling people in jail?
But I mean, you don't even have to call people in jail. Like, the person I'm most, something is up with the mic, right? Yeah. Like, I'm talking to most, and we both live in the inner circle of Berlin, and we always have problems talking to each other. Like, we can't really get a sentence straight. So I think it's something we all can deeply connect to, and I really loved that about it. It really stressed me out, but it also painted a really human picture of people being in prison and talking about everyday stuff and watching the same kind of TV shows like we do. So for me, it was a stressor that I know from everyday life, and also that notion of, you in Germany, you can also be in prison for not having a ticket in the U-Bahn, you know, and that made it really mundane, I guess.
But what I found interesting and what confused me about this film is that I got this strong sense of also like a very retro vibe. I mean, this film could have been dated in like 20 years ago or something. And so I don't know, did you get that sense of like this being like out of time? To me, I think it had to do with the grainy images, of course, and the glitches and the colorful glitches that reminded me of like the test build of TV in the 1980s when TV stopped screening during the night or something. So I had these strong associations of old media or something, and so but this confused me a little bit, or I don't know why the films went into that strange temporal place. Or did you not see it like that at all?
For me, this sort of, yes, this aspect of analog retro, maybe faux retro or faux. I had questions about that as well, especially because this idea of this like the grain as an effect, I was a little bit skeptical of. But honestly, as soon as I saw the red iPhone, it placed me at a moment in time. So that was like one giveaway. But I think without that element, perhaps I would. Yeah, I think I had a similar feeling.
Yeah, I felt that it's really connected to the recent boom of analog media and being offline, and Gen Z's obsession with good old millennial and people before that culture. So I felt it was also romanticizing those problems in a bit. And I felt like, and this somehow played into that the whole film was strangely and for me really funnily German coded. It was really super German in a lot of things, and I would have loved to see more of the interiors also. And yeah, what was really German about it was like the biking, of course, and then what the man was wearing, this techie, outdoorsy, colorful wear, and then also this way about talking about the good old, not really good old times, but when we were sitting together at the table. I felt like that had really a, for me, soothing, and also really, yeah, in really making a strong message about normalität, normcore in prison, let's say it that way. That was really playing into that as well.
Would you classify it as nostalgia, or is it something different than that?
Yeah, I like in our podcast, we recently did an episode about offline core and people pretending whilst being online to be offline, and I feel like this nostalgia trend, I don't know when exactly the shooting was, but this really wanting to be real and wanting to come back to connections, I really saw that in nostalgia, in those aspects.
I like how we drifted towards the nostalgic feeling. I didn't get it from the film, not at all. For me, it was really a choice of fragmentation, like to layer it again. But I love to hear that also this very Germany thing. And now I feel a little bit like, I gotcha, because I didn't remark it. I just felt the outer worldy effects on watching a film when we watched the second film, that there was no water, no electricity, and that also gave me an impact of, oh my God, this is hard. And I felt this, this, that I don't belong into that world feeling. And I don't really know where I'm going right now. I'm just talking. So if you want to interrupt me, interrupt me.
Who wants water?
I want water. So what I like there, like when I take this idea of romanticizing, is that in the first film I didn't see it because I was focusing on other things. But when I take this now to the second film, there's so many romantic things in there. Did you see them too? Like the flowers and the birds and the garden, and like the little pool that creates and deflates all the time. And
but to me, that's not necessarily romantic inherently. We were romanticizing it in the context. But yes, I would agree. But that's also for me where the little joys come from. The fact that we can romanticize things that are mundane. So like the little chicken, I don't know, it's just a chicken. But then when the chicken's jumping up the step, it's whimsical and it's beautiful. And so I don't know, that's where for me that springs from. But I don't necessarily, I don't know, maybe a flower is inherently romantic. I don't know.
No, I feel really that it happened because my mind wanted to protect me from something that was happening there. And it wasn't happening in the first, because in the first film, I didn't feel no danger. like for me personally. But in the second, I really felt it. So every little thing that was kind of nostalgic, I grabbed it. But now when I look at it from that perspective that you now opened, this is the train of thought that I'm right. It's like this German perspective, and I see myself, oh, I'm so deep into that I didn't even notice, but you're totally right. And then I see, oh, I'm doing that to this person who is doing a film in Sergipe in Brazil. Oh, what's happening? What am I doing here, you know?
But I would totally describe what the protagonist is doing as a self-romanticization, you know what I mean? As a survival strategy, also whilst filming a diary and all that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, at one point very early on in the movie, he talks about producing survival strategies, and the end could be read in that way too, like with this kind of corny, happy song playing, but it's ambivalent and bittersweet, and I don't really trust the happiness or the happy end.
But I would be really interested in hearing your opinions on what kind of art is mentioned in the second film and how you related to that. What is art in the second film and how does he relates to it?
I mean, I noticed the DVDs, which is like very anachronistic media as well. So I thought like old media is a theme running through both of these films. And I had to think a bit about another experimental film that I saw at Berlinale a couple of years ago, I think, by Franck Beauvais, like a French experimental filmmaker who it's a film made up entirely out of found footage clips. So it's entirely made up out of other films, but it has a voiceover that talks about binge watching in the context of depression or something, like watching films as a way to cope, maybe, like as a therapeutic device, but maybe also as a symptom of being really depressed. It's like you can never really tell, is it the symptom or is it the cure? And I had to, there seemed to be something similar going on here with the movies in the second film, I thought, because they seemed so random in a way too. Like it seemed to be a random collection of films referenced.
Yeah, the word random is also what struck me when you asked.
But it was pretty canonical, I would say, like the books.
Yes.
And all male. I haven't read them.
Sissy wasn't Sissy. Yeah. Couldn't Sissy be seen, or did I imagine that?
Okay, yes, in that term, yeah, there's.
He uses the word eclectic, maybe I don't know. He doesn't say, oh, like it's eclectic, or he reflects on the collection as eclectic versus random. I don't know if there's.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've seen two types of art, and I would consider those DVDs like displayed as artifacts rather, and the books who are read or the filmmakers mentioned like gods maybe, or like they get a different kind of stage for me.
Okay, yeah, for me, like I didn't pay no attention to what he was showing to me. I didn't pay no attention to what he was reading to me. I read everything as a strategy for him to postpone the moment of killing himself, like trying to get out of it. And this really, like, you're totally right with your observation when I think about it. It's really a really male gazy cultural approach to art.
That's not even what I was trying, or maybe also, but I was wondering, like, I guess about the juxtaposition of this Bible and then trying to survive as a queer person, I guess. Like, what what friction is that, and also questions of self-harm, or like, with whom do you surround yourself in solitude? And yeah, I think that kind of thinking.
I read this as, being in this context, again, if we're talking about being without electricity, being without water in this space, in this home environment where these might be the objects that you have lying around the house. Like there might frankly be a Bible if you're a filmmaker or student of film, you might have these canonical books that are from all male authors. And I wouldn't necessarily, and so I'm going back to this idea of pretension or pretentiousness as well, because I'm often very skeptical or cynical when these kinds of images are given to me, but I didn't, when I saw this film, that wasn't the immediate effect that it had on me. I wasn't necessarily taking in every word that was being read from Deleuze or whatever, but to me, it was the artifact itself first, or I saw it as, okay, this is just a book that he maybe had from studies, or he actually read in earnest, and then maybe going back to the book ultimately had a comforting feeling, and then the meaning from the actual book has been stripped away, perhaps. But again, maybe that's just me projecting, what I'm interpreting from his reading of the books. The movies are another thing.
I think I was just like constantly collecting hints for as to who this person is and in what kind of situation he is, and like trying to understand or like paint a picture for me of this person and the situation. And the books were like one hint to me into a past that this person has. And that was probably very different to his current situation. So I didn't see them so much as like pretentious artifacts trying to showcase something or something, but rather as I was so occupied with like trying to make sense of it all, and was kind of almost thankful for these further hints the film gave me, also by the text that he had written. Yeah.
Actually, because I feared so much for him, in a way. I started really, I was maybe not for him, but for me, I was maybe thinking, where is this going? Is he going to get out of this? And then, like going further on hints, because I like that. And also in the context of this Rudelkritik, that we're in this cinema together and we're experiencing it together while the film was running. The first moment in the second film when people laughed was when the turtles were fucking. This was something that I remarked. And then after that, when the funny scenes, like for me, they were funny, they came and nobody laughed, I felt so, oh my God, maybe because they're not laughing because they don't know how this is gonna end,
Yeah, what I think was an important thing for me for that kind of notion was that the director, before we saw both films, said the other director can't be here tonight and you will see why. And that really frightened me, because I was like, why?
Yeah, these kind of hints, they really like do something to us. And I usually, when I watch films, I try to avoid them beforehand because they tend to give me a different feeling of the film. And is there any more hints that you want to share about the first or the second film that you gathered, like somehow
externally to the film?
Yeah, totally. It was hot in here. This is something that I remarked. It was full, which is nice, and it was tense. It's also that I liked. It really, yeah.
No, please.
I would actually be interested to hear somebody from the audience pitch in and get some feel for how people saw the films, or kind of ideas and questions they might have had. But I don't want to.
Perfect. Let's do it. Perfect. So if you want to say something, please don't overthink it. Just go ahead, talk.
I want to say something about the end. I think in the end why he is... Hoe zeg je dat? No, at the end when he's exploding. So that's because he's dying, right? Like all the time he's soothing himself by masturbating. He's explaining it, even he's talking about his childhood experience, and it somehow feels that it's bringing him back to some childhood thing that is quieting him down. And at the end, when it's not soft anymore, when he has a real erection, then it's death. It's like a classical.
But
end.
didn't he have erections before that as well?
Well, that's not what we analyzed up till now.
I don't think so. What?
I think so.
No.
So that's wait a minute. Can you? Why is it death to you?
I think it's like a classical cinema symbol.
But he calls his cock like material of life at one point, right? Like,
and in French, it's petit mort, orgasm.
For example, yes.
Ah.
Yeah, we're like gathering hints.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, cool. Yeah, someone else is back there, and then up here. Maybe we just.
Yeah, for me, the whole penis thing was actually because he was so depressed. I felt like in these moments he was really relieved and he could let go. And it was a good sign for me that he was, he was like in prison with himself. And I thought when he was masturbating, he could actually be alive and free. So for me, it was a whole different view.
Did you feel that freedom in that moment? No, but for him, you felt it.
Sorry. Yeah. So for me, it's a bigger picture. That's what I thought, that he, for like on the one hand, he's a queer traumatized person in some way, and I don't know. So many people felt offended by watching the penises, but I think it's part of being alive, and sexuality for many people is part of being alive, and this is how I saw it, that he is living in that space with his mother and the animals and suffering every day. And yeah, so it's masturbating and being intimate with oneself, looking for love, whatever. It's part of life, and it's part of experiencing feelings, just as basic as that. So this is how I felt about it. So I didn't see it as something dramatic or connected to death. But I can see how it is connected now, but I had a completely different feeling.
Thank you. Back there's or
Letzte Reihe links, bei der Tür ist auf jeden Fall jemand.
ja. Ah. You can also come up here and just take the mic and then just talk and.
Sorry, I didn't mean to dominate the question rule. I just love the fact that we are discussing penises and masturbation in the context of Aristotelian dramaturgy structure. Because the very first comment, actually, it's so great that you said that. because that's something that was actually missing for me in this whole dialogue, is that in the end he did really release. Obviously he released something there, he released the energy, but it's actually like it's not like death, it's like the release in a sense of like a catharsis, do you know? Like in the Greek tragedy, there's like some really dark thing going on, and then in the very end something happens and then the viewer just feels relieved, you know? So this masturbation was actually kind of like a relief. It was really a catharsis for me.
I didn't really see it as such at all. And also the film is not, it doesn't have like a narrative arc that follows Aristoteles. There's like no conflict, no development, nothing, which is great. But that's how the film is made. It's like a relentless onslaught of like tiny shots. So I'm not really convinced by that reading. And also I think it makes more out of these penis scenes or masturbation scenes than the film itself. I mean, I kind of like how nebenher, how it's not a big thing. It's like
It's happening.
Yeah,
It's just passing by.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like my usual question to you would be now, why would you see it like that? What is the wish in there? You know, what Yeah, but then where's the Greek mythology coming from? Then the Greek dramaturgy and everything. I like it that it's there, but I want to know why.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I don't know how you saw the film. I saw it, especially as you already mentioned with the comment in the very beginning that he's not here, and you're gonna see why he's not here. So the whole film, I thought he killed himself. You know, from the very beginning, I thought he killed himself, and I'm happy that it's not the case. But the whole film, I was waiting for some big ending, you know, in the very end, and there was like some, you know, closure. And every time there is a closure, I like the viewer kind of feels, I don't know about you guys, I mean, I didn't feel satisfied because he just was masturbating in the end and then licked his sperm. I felt really disgusted. But I mean, in a theoretical sense, it kind of is in some way a release. And I felt the whole film through like this tension, you know? And for me, it was this relief, like Erleichterung, you know, like this, like, okay, like this is closure. This is like a good closure of the film. Of course, I mean, we could also talk about this forever, and maybe I will change my mind in 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I just I really liked the very first comment, and I thought, that could actually be like one of the versions, one of the like really interesting ideas.
Okay.
And yeah, and talking about penises in this way is also, I found it very fun generally.
Cool.
Thanks.
I mean, I was actually really interested in how the film was made, how it was edited, and like who did what. And I don't know if the filmmaker wants to talk or not, but I was thinking about that. What exactly was the who did what and who decided what? And it seemed the protagonist filmed himself, so that he was operating the camera, I guess. But so it'd be really interesting for me to hear actually what Fábio, like how the process was for you too.
Okay, then we skip.
Ok, sorry. Quer falar em português? Eu traduzo para ficar gravado.
O processo foi que a gente está em estados diferentes durante a pandemia e a gente conversava muito por telefone do que seriam os planos. E depois da montagem, eu acabei fazendo a parte técnica do computador em casa, mas toda a concepção e o tempo inteiro a gente estava conversando junto.
So actually, it was kind of like a virtual production because it was made during the pandemic. So this time that the I won't say more than he said, but they were having conversations on the phone all the time because they were in 2 different states. Fábio is living in São Paulo, and Wesley in Sergipe, this house where you see the film. So they are always organizing which plane they're going to shoot, always in talk. So it was really co-direction. And the part of editing, he did você fez no... he did the editing, but always the conceptualizing and the script was also in talk with Wesley.
Thank you. I want to step in here because you said something earlier that you didn't, I don't know if I can rephrase it properly, but something about not trusting him to really feel that in a way. And when you just said that, I don't know if it was just a way of describing the process of making a documentary film from one city to the other, but these words directing and stuff, they trigger something for me because I had this feeling while watching the film too. What if this whole film was not a documentary film? You know? I mean, this might be like totally off, but I had this moment and now it came up back again and you mentioned it too. It does change something.
Isso engatilhou ele de pensar talvez de outra maneira que não é mais documentário,
talvez. Eu, Fábio, a olhar o filme mais como ficção. O Wesley tende a olhar mais como documentário.
He thinks he feels more the film as a fiction, and Wesley tends to think the film as more as a documentary. So it's both.
Okay.
One director thinks it's a fiction, the other thinks it's a documentary.
Yeah, I would just say I had the same thoughts or it was running through my head as well, this idea of the constructedness of it or a performative aspect. I guess it's interesting to me because reading, it's easy to read the film as very spontaneous because of how it's, or to me, spontaneous because of how it's edited, and the testimonies to the camera feel very kind of just okay, as if he grabbed his phone and just suddenly just decided to film. So, but obviously this comment about it being as you said, directed and edited in a certain way presents a different view. But to me it this kind of conversation brings up, of course, this idea that we can't always trust what we see, or it's interesting to think about how we trust a film or what elements we decide to trust. I don't know if others, thought about that. It was, training us to watch the film in a certain way from the first images, training us to see this as, again, a very spontaneous kind of production.
For me, one of the very first images that was Wesley lying down on the concrete steps back in the little garden area, or you know what I mean. That was so theatrical. And also I found that the nudity, let's call it that maybe, also reminded me of 2000s theater, taking nudity as art. And so it had a really, really theatrical quality about it, and also trying to romanticize what we know now has been locked down, because obviously the question of why can't the protagonist leave the house, I mean, because of those mentions of sexual assault, I was thinking in that direction, I think. So I imagined a really violent outside, and that now has been really changed. Yeah.
I have just a comment as well, because I watched this film in Brazil in the presence of Wesley, and it's totally different film. If you see, it's really sad that he's not here right now, because I think the understanding of the film will be totally different. The thing about Wesley is he's very performative person in real. So I understand why he thinks the film is a documentary. And from the side of Fábio as a fiction is because they really thought out how they're gonna make the film. Just a comment.
Yeah, but I think it's so interesting that you you told us this about the production, and you it makes so much sense to me that this is really like a total hybrid, like a performance documentary thing at the same time, and like undecidable in a way. And I had one interesting experience while watching. I was trying to read his gaze at certain points, like in the very beginning, and I felt the gaze was like so full of terror and like really fearful. And then later I thought, no, maybe this is just, it's play acted, but I just noticed myself really trying to decipher that gaze. And so I think it's just interesting that I got into this position of trying so hard to read this gaze and decide, is this like real terror, or is it just kind of operatic play acting?
It's like a real life Kuleshov effect in many ways, right? You see like the image, I mean, you see his eyes and we're trying to interpret it sort of like this. I don't know. Because I don't know if we see one image and then we see his eyes. To me, the eyes stood out in particular with where in the shot where you see like the flashlight going around, and then when you see the eyes illuminated, that's what really struck me. But I can't say the gaze earlier struck me, but I can see where, yeah, certain images and then cutting back. Were there any particular moments of
yeah, I noticed there was one shot later in the film where he was just, I don't know, filming a cat or something, but then kind of distractedly looking up to the sky. And I really thought, okay, is this really like a crazy, like a mental health crisis thing? Like, but I was never sure. And I think it's so interesting that you mentioned the pandemic, because it's obviously that's the feeling we get, but it's not given in the film itself. So I totally thought he cannot leave the house because of like some anxiety disorder or something. I did not think about the pandemic. So it's interesting how that too changes the reading of the film, like not saying that, not saying Corona.
This is exactly the reason why I hate to have the filmmakers in talks, because you cannot see the film as the film is, but you see what is behind the film. But I really love that it came into this debate right now to really turn almost everything that we said upside down and make it be shining from the other side. But there's a question or something that...
Yes, I wanted to just once come back also to the first film, because we talked a lot about the second film now.
Thank you, yeah.
Because you mentioned this nostalgia, also because of of course, the digital DV video style. And I also didn't think about nostalgia, but more about an anachronism. I don't even know but because of course, you're completely right. We still have also in our day-to-day life these bad connections, for example, in Berlin streets. But still there is something I think that's very special to this prison setting, where there are certain rules where you can't call back yourself. You have to wait for someone else to call. You have to dial certain numbers in order to use the system. And this is something I think that in our world that is quite connected is still something that almost belongs to a different time, or is kind of an anachronism. And I think to use this as also a way to think about prisons and the prison system, and in what way this might be also anachronistic, I think that was something for me, that made sense to also use like this anachronistic medium or this kind of anachronistic aesthetic to comment on that. I think that's why I didn't like feel it as nostalgia. That's what I was thinking about again.
Oh, sorry.
In the sort of name of peeling back the camera, the question that remains for me in the film is, you know, was like grain digital? Like, how was the film digitally altered, or was it shot on analog? Like, are we seeing actual analog footage, or is it an application of an effect to make us think a different way? Just as, you know, there were elements of the second film. Yeah, so that's what question.
The filmmaker has to say something.
No. Wait, before we ask the filmmaker or the camera person, what would it change for you? Like, does it change anything? Is it? I mean, we obviously now had the fact that somebody was saying something made us walk towards like the usual critique way that we understand things. But what I love is that we sitting here and we don't understand, and we're trying to find out what we don't understand, why we don't understand it. And it's perfect to have that this idea of like anachronistic, and then also this altered reality thing that when you're walking somewhere and then the connection, like, and then I'm saying altered reality because jail life and like calling somebody in jail and calling someone in Berlin to Berlin is something, it's like two different things, but now they glitch into each other. And now when you think about that, what would it change for you?
I think for me, it's less about change. It's less about what it would change in my interpretation of the film, but I'm interested in the filmmaker's intentions. If a filmmaker is showing us an element of, okay, we're seeing something that reminds us of analog, is the filmmaker using analog in a way to connect them to the actual medium that we're being shown? I don't know. It's just a question of, thinking about the actual materiality as well, because I think a film being made digitally and analog is a long conversation about, resources but sometimes filmmakers have a specific intention to shoot on analog, to also scratch the film or to do something with the film that also feeds into the content. And so again, with the image that I see, it feels very digitally altered to me. And that's, for me, a cynical gaze on the film. And I want to also give, for me, I want the question answered because I'm also curious whether I'm imposing my own view of it being digitally altered onto the film. So I guess it's a question. I don't have to have an answer, but I want to know.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's not really so important how the film, like on what kind of analog or digital or how it was made, because I see it very much as like opting for like messy images, like poor images, dirty images, like the opposite of like high definition, perfect, clear connection. So I very much take that as like the intention of the film.
Yeah, for me, I think it at times felt quite gimmicky, especially when there were those really big pixels in a lot of colors, and I also read them as an effect. But what I found beautiful about those lost connection theme was how it forced the people to be really clear and to really communicate, like, call me again, I'm always picking up if I can, and if not, I can't. Like being forced to be so transparent, that touched me.
I mean, there's like in media studies, it's this idea that the media only gets visible in moments of disruption, or you can only see or hear or perceive media when they do not work. And so this would be very much a film about media and like talking about like showing how media works by showing how it does not work and does not in moments when it does not function. So yeah.
Yeah, this was like a doubling effect that happened there. But what you said last was something completely different. But I also felt that, but in another scene that I forgot until now, that the moment when they were watching Tata together, they were really wasting away the time they had to talk, and this is what I loved, that in certain moments they were so precise. Something had to be like, you have to keep that date free, and you have to fill in that form to get in there and do that and that, and then they're watching together, and then it's like waiting, watching, seeing.
No,
it was so, I like that too, because it was so much about like, talking on the phone is not about exchanging information, not at all, but it's about being together. Or as you say, like wasting it on just watching Tatort together and having this kind of co-presence or something. But I was just thinking maybe this focus on talking on the phone is very anachronistic too, right? Like phone communication is like nobody does it anymore. Like nobody wants to talk on the phone anymore. So that alone is like a very retro, anachronistic move that to focus on that medium.
But it's the only means of communication while you're in prison. So this, I mean, not the only, but one of the forms that you can choose to be close to someone, which is also depicted in the film, that when he's moving towards him and then he's being there on the bike, he's not really there, but he says it changes something for him inside, but he has to say it via phone. And this really made me feel so happy that we were there in that moment to share that moment. But then I thought right now, I was saying wasting time, but it was the opposite, actually. It was the most valuable time that was happening, right?
I was going to say, to me, it's not wasting time. It's, I mean, this is a question of vocab, which is useless now. But like, yeah, to me, it's, I mean, spending in the sense that you are using the time in a way that is ultimately productive. Yeah. So I would agree.
I just wanted to say, I guess, that I feel like there should be a radio play of this film as well.
Any more feelings to be shared? Things that you observed? If not, so I don't know about the time. We could just keep on talking. Maybe we're running out of like. Yeah. Yes, so this is the point where I want to lead to. There's a bar, a very nice bar around the corner. It's called Hackesche, and yeah, we should go. Thank you very much.